Alright guys, it's Copper Cutlass here, and as you can see, we have a giant fucking mess of fuckery, and I'm not happy about it, because this is probably the dirtiest the garage has been during a project. You can see we got water, that's not coolant, water from the engine. I'm using a oil pan, a spare one, as a parts holder. And we got the engine out of the car. Two of my good friends I've known for a long time came out and gave me a hand. We got the hood off, we got the engine out. We messed around and pre-lubed the oil system like you would, you know, when you put in a new engine. And even with the oil pump that was in the J-headed 350, it did the same thing with the oil pressure. Now, let me talk about why that happened. But before that, let me show you something. And this is where I'm honest with you guys when shit goes wrong, because I have nothing to hide. I'm just a dude who is honestly... The amount of shit in this oil pan blows my fucking mind. I don't know where that came from. Keep in mind, we had this engine apart. We kept it clean. We always bagged it. You know? So I don't know where that came from. We had this block down to nothing, and I took the block over to the machine shop and we washed it and we rinsed it and we cleaned it. You know, so all this stuff that is coming out, I don't know where it came from, but that was actually our problem. So the oil feed for the distributor gear was actually plugged up. There was no oil coming out of that spit plug, and I have the correct spit plug in there. That was the first dead giveaway. But as we're priming it, we're hearing like a burbling, squirting, weird noise that you would not typically hear. So I pop that plug out. I look inside, and I can see something is trying to force its way out. There was a tiny little chunk of RTV that was trying to weasel its way out through that 40 thousandths hole. So remember when I said in the description of our issue, I saw the oil pressure gauge peg 80 and then it dropped? That's what happened. That back gallery plug, if you remove it, you have no oil pressure. You're not going to build any oil pressure. I mean, we to flush whatever was possibly in there, we took the plug out and we rotated the oil pump with a drill and just watched everything flow through, flow through, flow through, flow through, flow through, and continuously flow through. And then we put the pipe plug back in after we cleaned it up, and boom, oil pressure was 60 pounds with the same oil that was in there. Cool. We're back in business, right? So that's not a big deal. But it was, again, this is why I like to run an engine on a run stand. If this was on a run stand, this would have been less of a headache to fix. And yes, I'm going to get my engine run stand back up and operating so that I can run this engine for some time and make sure that it's going to be absolutely good. But I will tell you that so far, we took off main caps, rod caps, everything absolutely looks good on the bearing, and there's no damage to the bearings. So whatever was in there, and it was probably in there from the beginning. Don't know how the hell it got in there, but it did. It did. And... But cleanliness is godliness, guys, and this is where something as minute as a, less than 3 cent piece of RTV caused us a ton of work. Now, the last time I had an oil pump issue was with the J-headed 350, but we actually had a chunk of shrapnel that found its way into the pickup and got the pressure relief valve stuck. And that was stuck closed. So we were actually over-pressurizing the oil system. In this situation, we were pressurizing the oil system because it had a clog. And so as soon as you would fire it up, this thing would spike up, that valve would open up, the bypass would open up, and you would have a low pressure reading because it was opening up to the point where the pressure was low. And I know it kind of sounds ridiculous, but again, we pulled out the spit plug, we pulled out the chunk that was kind of in there, and once we started getting oil flowing through there, things were back to normal. And we don't have any engine bearing damage or anything like that. So, and then again, looking at the bottom of the oil pan supports the fact that I had some shit flowing through there. And again, this engine was, we took it to the machine shop that my buddy works at to clean it up and do everything. And as careful as we were, we still managed to have that much shit go through it. So when you guys put something together, clean, 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 clean. I really don't know where all that stuff came from. I've built engines in dirtier situations that didn't have that. You know, the J-headed 350 was built in this garage, which is not the cleanest. It's just your typical garage. And when I pulled the pan, it was fucking clean, you know. When I pulled the engine out of here to pull the oil pan, it was clean. And that oil pan at this point has been off that engine twice, and we're still going to fix it. But this engine is ultimately going to go back in the car because this is going to require a lot less work. But we're still going to fix the 350 with the J-heads, get that squared away and running, and have that ready to go. And we might even just put that on the dyno. The cylinder heads, I actually dropped those off at my friend's place. He's going to do the guides. He's going to hook me up and take care of it. And he actually wants to flow the J-heads. And I think at this point, that engine's been ran long enough to where I'd be interested to actually put that engine on the dyno and see what it can do. I think conservatively wise, we're probably going to have to run lower RPM. I think I'm a little skittish with that engine at that point because the pistons are heavier in that, but it is what it is. But this engine now builds great oil pressure. And, you know, we swapped oil pumps. I know what the oil pressure was doing with the old oil pump, and it did the same thing with a good oil pump. So that was to rule out the oil pump. Did I say oil pump enough times? And then once we started digging and looking at stuff and we were hearing noises, we were looking for where this little like sprout noise was coming from. And I realized that there wasn't any oil coming out of the distributor spit plug. And then it looked like something was trying to push its way out. So I think the oiling system was backfeeding. And much like if you remove the plug, you build no oil pressure. I think if you pressurize that side, you're going to overpressurize the oil system, which is, it explains that pressure spike that I saw in the car on the gauge. So that's that, guys. We are moving on. We don't really have anything hurt at this point. You know, we've kind of avoided catastrophic failure a couple times in here, and I should go play the lottery. But either way, thanks for following along, guys. The saga isn't over. I'm done for the day. Tomorrow, I'm going to clean up and then order up gaskets when I have the money, because right now things are a little tight. I'm going to see what I got, see if I could get away with not ordering anything, because I do have a bunch of stuff lying around. But we're going to get this thing back together. I'm going to get it on the run stand. I'm going to run it for a little bit and go from there. So share, like, subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, Scott Cutlass. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. It ain't over. Just a lot of little dumb things. And this is where, you know, we may have had a lot of issues this year, but I've learned a lot this year. More so than any other year. You know, when nothing goes wrong, you don't learn anything. It's not until stuff goes wrong that you have the opportunity to learn and gain a lot more experience. And I definitely have done that this year. So we'll see you guys around. Thanks.